Hi everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I've seen a lot of videos recently about pedals and amplifiers and guitars that Hendrix used throughout his career. But what I haven't seen is actually a demonstration video with how to set those pedals, how to set your amplifier, and really how to utilise your guitar to really achieve certain Hendrix tones throughout his career, starting from early, where he's got a more muffled sound, so later where he has a more defined and experimental sound with effects like the Univibe and the wah. Now, I probably don't need to explain why I'm using this guitar for Hendrix's late tone, because almost everybody in the world knows what this guitar is. It's the Woodstock guitar, or a recreation of it. This is actually a Japanese Fender, which sounds beautiful, sometimes even better than the American sometimes. But this is a Fender JV 60s modified Stratocaster, and it was made popular at Woodstock, but again it was used at other gigs such as Berkeley, he used it at, Maui, and he also used it as his last ever concert at the Isles of Fehmarn in Germany. So it really epitomises his late tone because of the maple board, which he started using from the middle of 1969 till the end of his life. And yeah, so he really had this guitar. Isabella, 1968 is the year that his one was manufactured. Mine wasn't, but we can't all get an original guitar. So first of all, I'm going to start with his late tone. Now the late tone I'm talking about specifically is the tone he used from around 1969 to his death in September 1970. And this kind of tone that we're going to go for needs one of these. Now this is my one is a Marshall Valvestate, and this is a 100-volt head into a 140-watt cab. But to be honest, it's kind of essential. You need a Marshall. No, but you do. You can use other brands such as Friedman, for example. But for the real authentic Hendrix tone, and what he actually would have used is a Marshall. So the settings you want to use on this Marshall are pretty simple. Hendrix wasn't really one that liked to beat around the bush at all. So you're going to have the gain and overdrive on 10. You're going to have the bass on 10, middle 10, treble 10, volume 10. Now you can always use the master to turn this down, but if you have an attenuator, this would be perfect. So you can crank that amp and get that lovely warmness that Hendrix actually would have used, but at a regulated volume. The contour is important, and that's at about 11:30. So the contour gives you that kind of thin or heavy sound. So Hendrix is kind of in the middle of that, but slightly lighter and more on the high end. So the tone we're going to go for is, like I said, that late Hendrix tone uses the Octavio, which is the pedal, if you don't know, that has that octave up feature, and it really adds like this kind of harmonic tone to it. And he also used a different fuzz face. Now I'll show a picture here, but this is the kind of fuzz face that he used from 1969 onwards, and it was a red fuzz face with white knobs on, and this was one made by Roger Mayer. We don't know what was inside it, the exact circuit, but they can get a close representation, and here I have a replica of that pedal known as the Band of Gypsies fuzz face. And this is essential to the Hendrix tone of late because it's a really meaty and aggressive fuzz face. Not talking about the later, the later in the video where I talk about the early fuzz face, which is slightly different. But you can achieve it with one fuzz face. So this late fuzz face tone I'm talking about is this meaty aggressive tone. And it's really in your face and hot. He also, later in his life, used the Univibe as well, which I will explain later. But that's the modulating kind of wah effect. And then he obviously used a wah pedal. So the first song I'm going to give a demonstration of is Voodoo Child. Now you may all, I hope you'd all know this as Hendrix fans hopefully, but Voodoo Child is that signature intro of the wah pedal. Very important. And it's important to note, I'm talking about the live version, he would not have his fuzz face switched on during the intro. Then when the main riff comes in, the dun-dun-dun-dun, he'd have the fuzz face turned on at that moment, and then it would beef it up and bring you into the song. Also, during the solo on Voodoo Child, he uses the Octavio in the, I think it's the second solo, and this kind of sound is achieved by, this is when you want to use the neck pickup. Now, the neck pickup, or position 5, as many may know it, is with the knob most towards you. So, and then the Octavio really fills it out, and you get the most use out of the Octavio, specifically when you're using a neck pickup. You don't get that kind of octave sound as much when you're using the bridge pickup, so you want to use the neck. And so an Octavio is a funny pedal, and you will experiment with it a lot, and you might find your own ways of using it. But in my experience, to get that Hendrix tone, you want to have level on 10 and the fuzz on 10. Now, for me, that works perfectly. And you may think, well, that might be a bit too misty and not much clarity. But what you can do is, if you roll down your volume knob to around 4 or 5, you can really start to clean up the pedal, and you'll start to get that clarity that you really want. Whereas when you want to go into the solos, you'll blast the volume up and go to 10. And that means when you're doing your solos, you get that moment where if you bend and you get the vibrato, it kind of starts to start with that feedback, and it will really like go up towards the high end and feedback. And that's what you really want to achieve that Hendrix solo on Voodoo Child. The fuzz face in this song, and all of the settings that I use for all Hendrix songs later in his life, I will set the volume to 3 PM and the fuzz to 3 PM, and that is the standard. And yet again, you can control that with your knob. But bearing in mind that the Band of Gypsys fuzz face is so meaty and hot, it doesn't really clean up that well. Just something to note and bear in mind. Here is a demonstration. Now, the next song I'm going to do an explanation of and demonstration, and the sound is New Rising Sun, or Hey Baby as it was known. And this is a song that he did towards the very end of his life, and this is going into 1970. And particularly a popularised version is the Maui version, where he plays an improvised version. But this step is crucial, and it's using the univibe on this. You don't want to have any fuzz face on, just the univibe. Have your volume cranked, and it's going to keep that modulation going and really achieve this. Oh, it's a wonderful sound. And yeah, if you want to go into the solo bits, you can turn on the fuzz face, but it was kind of a mellowed song, this one, so I personally suggest not using the fuzz face and just using the overdrive from the amplifier. So the univibe, you're going to want to set the speed at about 9:30. So it's slow, but you don't want it to be turning too quick. You want the level set at about 1:30, and you want the depth set at 3 PM. I use an MXR univibe. Here's a demonstration of Hey Baby, New Rising Sun. final tone for Jimi's late tone that we're going to go over is Machine Gun. Now, I'm particularly talking about the best version I think he did, which was at the Fillmore on New Year's Eve 1969 and New Year's Day 1970. And this tone is using the Band of Gypsys Fuzzface, which is obviously designed to be the Band of Gypsys, which is what that album was recorded from that day and that set at the Fillmore. And this tone is very, very detailed, but basically what the tone is on this album is you've got to have the fuzz face, and that's crucial, but you've got to have the univibe as well, because it gives that modulation effect that really symbolises, the wails of bombs and the screams of people. It's what you envision in the song, but it really brings out those elements. And that's what you want to have for the main song, and using that hot fuzz face to produce that meaty sound that he achieves in the song. For the solo, he sometimes switches in and out of using the Octavio, so that's something that we've covered before, but you want to have the both settings cranked on that. And the important thing to mention is not to use the fuzz face and Octavio in conjunction, because I found it kind of starts to muddy a bit, and you don't want that. You want to keep the clarity. So when you go to change from the fuzz face to the Octavio, keep the fuzz face on, don't turn it off, and switch on the Octavio and then switch off the fuzz face, because otherwise you'll have this weird thing when you're playing where it just cuts out, it's completely clean, and then goes straight back. So it's a bit too much of a jump. It will go fuzzy, clean, fuzzy, and you don't want that because that just sounds crap. So here's a demonstration of Machine Gun, particularly the Fillmore East version. Now we have Hendrix's early tone. Now, for Hendrix's early tone, like I said earlier, it's not an experimental sound, it's just the fuzz face mainly. With a little bit of Octavio in certain songs like Purple Haze, and yeah, so the guitar that you're going to ideally use for this tone is specifically a rosewood board. Now, Hendrix, exclusively used maple boards from the middle of '69 till the end of his life. No one knows why, he just ended up liking them, but in the early days he almost exclusively used rosewood. Now, I know this is a 70s era guitar with the bullet, however, cut that headstock off and this is what he would have used. It's, the rosewood board, Olympic white, iconic. That's pretty essential, I think, because the tone would debate, but I believe it has a big effect on the actual sound. So that's the guitar we're going to use for the early tone. As for the pedals, I'm now going to start using the Jimi Hendrix signature fuzz face, which is a turquoise blue fuzz face, which you can see on stage when he's playing in the early concerts. And this is again set to 3 PM on the volume and 3 PM on the fuzz, and you can use the volume knob to clean that sound up. Now, for particular songs like Hey Joe, you want to have the volume knob rolled off with the fuzz face on, and this means you'll get the clarity. And you'll want to have the neck pickup selected, as this is what is used on Hey Joe. And I'm talking about the live version specifically because he uses a clean tone on the album version. So you can, with this fuzz face, you can clean it up. So when you turn down the volume, you'll start to get more defined and clear tone. And when you turn it up, you'll get that muddy, warm kind of flump of a tone. And it really makes the amp just go whoomp, whoomp, you know, like as the tone would go. So the first demonstration I'm going to give is Foxy Lady. And Foxy Lady has this wonderful intro, which we all know and love, which is with the feedback. And this feedback is only achieved when you have an amp loud, full gain, and using that fuzz face on full. And so what you want to do in this is very important. You'll play the note and you'll start with the volume off. Now this creates the feedback. You want to have the bridge pickup selected. And as you play that note, you want to bring in the volume knob slowly, and then when you get to 10, the feedback will hopefully start. If it doesn't, you know, just give it a little bit of a shake and the feedback will surely come in. So that's the tone. And here's a demonstration of Foxy Lady. The next song, as a demonstration, is Hey Joe. Now, like I mentioned before, Hey Joe is achieved by using the neck pickup, position 5, and the volume knob rolled down to, again, about 4.5 or 5. And don't worry about it sounding quiet, because when you've got a Marshall cranked, it really doesn't make any difference in volume. It just depends about clarity. It's almost like using a tone knob, really. So when you get to about 1/2, 4, 5, you achieve the nice intro, clean sound that you're going for. And then when it goes into the song's main verses, you can continue on that sound. And then the solo, you will want to blast it up to about 9, because you don't want too much fuzz on Hey Joe, but a decent amount. Here's a demonstration of Hey Joe. Now here is Purple Haze. This is the next song we're going to go through, and this is the next sound. So this song was played on the Octavio. Now this is when Hendrix first got his hands on an Octavio, built by Roger Mayer, and he presented the pedal with Jimi and said, "Jimi, I've come up with this new pedal. It octaves up, and it's also got fuzz on it." And he tried it, and he was like, "Wow!" So he immediately thought this would be perfect for a song I've been writing, Purple Haze. Such a characteristic sound, but yet again you're going to have the Octavio blasted and gunned, and this song is almost exclusively played on the Octavio, apart from the verses where I switched to the turquoise fuzz face during the verses to stop kind of the muddiness of the Octavio. And here you want to use the Octavio with position 5, a neck pickup, and have the volume knob rolled down to about 7, so you want a little bit of clarity. And then when you go into the solo, again, up all the way. And then for the verses, I'd probably have it on about 7. So because the fuzz on Purple Haze is quite thick and muddy, so that's the tone we're going for. And here is a demonstration of Purple Haze, particularly the intro and also the solo. Just briefly, I'll touch on the clean Hendrix tone. Now, the clean Hendrix tone is pretty much exclusively on the neck pickup on position 5 or position 4 using neck and middle. So songs like Little Wing would be a good example of this. You can use either rosewood or maple. It's not as essential. Depends which kind of song you're going for. If you're doing Little Wing, use maple. If you're doing Wind Cries Mary, use rosewood. But it doesn't really matter that much. So the tone has got this great kind of crispness, but the bass is so defined in Hendrix's clean tone on songs like Wind Cries Mary, Castles Made of Sand, and Little Wing. So I'll give a quick demonstration of Little Wing right now. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope this video has been very helpful, because when I came into the world of trying to get Hendrix's tone, I'm like, where do I start? So I hope this has been really, really educational almost about how to get Hendrix's tone, and the one that we all love very much, Hendrix. So thank you all for watching. I'll hopefully see you on a video soon, and take care.